presenter, discussing with you what we have observed for nearly 3 decades now of successful transformations at the digital level, at the business level, and at the cultural level. What are the key principles and mechanisms that enduringly great organizations have? So I would like to change hats now, and I'm going to put the hat of innovation on. So change my background accordingly for that. And I encourage you to submit your questions as we go along this journey. Some of you may know me, may have seen portions of this presentation. This is the opportunity for you to go deeper onto items that are most important to you as part of the discussion that we're going to have. So, excellence and innovation acceleration, culture, business, and digital transformations. So let's start that journey here together. And let me bring up my presentation here so that you can see it. And you already have that being shared with you. Excellent. And let's start with a question. What do you think matters most? And I'm going to give you 4 options. And what matters most in the context of not only having a successful transformation, but that successful transformation means that you have enduring great performance. And that performance is translated into value creation for all stakeholders, value creation for customers, value creation for employees, value creation for society as well. So when you look at successful transformations, what do you think matters most in the long term, in the long run? Is it about ideas? Is it about methods? Is it about technologies? Or is it about people? And don't dive into answering this too quickly. Go into the questions box and think about it, your own experiences. When you see enduring great organizations who have undergone successful transformations, what is the most important component of that? Be honest and be practical about it. Not what you think it should be, what you have observed in the past. Right now, go into the questions box on the GoToWebinar interface and please submit your input. What is most important? Is it ideas? Is it technologies? Is it methods? Is it technologies? Or is it people? So I'm waiting for your feedback here. Ideas, methods, technologies, or people. Pick one out of these 4 as what matters most. And I see it. William Fuller already has provided his input. I see William very well. Alan, Dennis, Cyprian, I'm looking for all of your input. And is it ideas? Is it methods? Is it technologies? Or is it people? Keep providing your input under the questions box. Submit as a question one out of these 4 items. What matters most? I'm looking for your input on that. I'm going to give you the answer later on, but I want you to think about this ahead of time and give me your honest answer based on your experiences. What matters most? Ideas, methods, technologies, people. Great. Josh Jill, great. I see hi there. Wonderful. Ribamar Matias, I see your input. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to bias. All right, Patty, I see your input. Tony, I got it. Josh, I see you saying hello. I'm interested on what you have to say about what matters most. Ideas, methods, technologies, or people. What is going to be the most important factor for a successful transformation? So great participation. I'm seeing lots of input coming up. And what I see here, where I don't want to pick any winners for you right now, I'm going to say that there is a pretty even distribution. And it's interesting because I believe that you're being honest. And the reason for that, if you're just saying things to kind of please me or think that this is what he wants to hear, most of you would be voting for people. Because you'd be like, well, people are most important assets, so that's wonderful. So that must be people, right? But I asked you that question with a caveat that I wanted to be honest and based on your experiences and what you have seen. A lot of you anyway, who have been in the industry for a long time, multiple industries. What you have seen is that we all value people disproportionately. There is no doubt about that. But that's not the way that industries often behave when they're going through transformations. People are our most important asset, but very often people are the first ones to go. So is it really true, or is this some sort of idea that sounds noble? So I really like the answers because there's a very even distribution among ideas, methods, technologies, and people, because you're being honest and practical about it. You're not just taking some theoretical answer and throwing back at me. And that's very important. Theory is nice, but what we're going to be talking about here is a practitioner's view of successful transformations. Not what we want to hear, but what the evidence shows to us. And then we're going to try to understand what that evidence means, and we're going to build on that. Now, great insights, great input. Now, the journey to greatness is filled with peril. It's not easy. It's very, very hard. And that's why the overwhelming number of organizations that will fail at that. And the reason is because to transform and achieve greatness, you must have a vision of what they may look like. And then you have to innovate towards that vision. And then you have to learn how to transform yourself towards that vision. This is incredibly complex. And no wonder most organizations will fail miserably at this. In fact, I would say that less than 1% of transformations are successful based on our empirical evidence, not some survey report or some input from respondents. This is by observing over nearly 3 decades transformations. The success rate is incredibly small. And the reason for that is because transformations are about affect your culture. And they're incredibly hard because cultures, like people, will resist what they most need to change. This is not an easy process for organizations, as much as it is not an easy process for people. Change is fine and transformation is fine for all of us as long as it does not affect us personally. When it affects us personally, we don't like it. Why is that? Well, because we're not wired for change and transformation. We are wired for safety, reliability, and predictability. And organizations are a reflection of us as human beings. So we should not be surprised that transformations fail at the rate that they do, because there will be incredible resistance on that transformation around the most important components of that transformation. So let's address the issue again. What matters most? Is it ideas? Is it methods? Is it technologies? Or is it people? So I'm going to give you an answer based on over 100 cross-industry organizations who have attempted to transform themselves, and over 30,000 excellence and innovation leaders in more now than 1,000 organizations that continue on that journey. And the answer is interesting because it's all of the above and none of the above in isolation. So it's about the intelligent blending of each one of these components. And I'm going to make your mind twist a little bit further, because I'm going to say things that will feel very contradictory. I'll say things like, ideas are incredibly important. We need to create a meritocracy of ideas so that we understand what's going on in the organization and what ideas our professionals have. And then I'll say, and ideas are everywhere. What are in common are people willing to put their reputation behind ideas. Then I'll say that methods are incredibly important because they provide a disciplined framework for execution of improvements and innovations and the transformation. And then I'll also say that I have been, for more than 25 years, a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. And for most people, that sounds like a dangerous mental condition. It doesn't help them. So methods are important, but methods do not transform businesses. People do. Okay, José, I get it. It must be about technologies, right? Because look at this conference. We're talking about all these different types of technologies: AI, natural language processing, RPA, process mining, and the list goes on and on. Exponential technologies, because we're in exponential times. Well, hold on there. Technologies are great when they enable your process, your value creation processes to deliver great value for your customers. But technologies can also make stupid happen at the speed of light. So it's not just about technologies. So it must be around people. This was a roundabout way of telling me that people are our most important asset after all. And as much as I want to admit that, because I feel that almost viscerally, in most organizations, that is actually not true when you look at the behaviors of senior leaders. When you look at the behaviors of senior leaders, yeah, all people kind of matter, but the ones that really matter are what they call the right people. And the right people are the amplifiers of the behaviors that you want to emulate in your transformation. And those are special people. So as you can see here, there are no simple answers, black or white answers when it comes to meaningful transformations. The world of greatness is filled with seemingly contradictions, forces that pull in very different directions, like the forces that I just mentioned to you. Now, great enduring organizations have mastered contradictions to a point that they are able to not balance, but blend these forces that pull in very different directions in ways that allow them to be successful in their transformations. And there are no two forces that pull in more different directions than the forces of excellence and the forces of innovation. The force of excellence is pulling you towards setting performance standards and meeting and exceeding those performance standards. The forces of innovation is pulling in a very different direction. And the forces of innovation is about looking at what you had, but most important, looking to not just improve upon the old system, but coming up with a new perspective on that system, a new perspective that allow you to take a leap in progress. Now, excellence and innovation, they don't coexist very peacefully. And again, because the world of excellence is about performance standards and performance standards, and the world of innovation is about finding a new way. I'm looking at the feed that I get from you now in the audience, and I want to do a reset here because I'm not sure that my slides are updating in the right order in your screen. So I want to make sure that you are seeing what I'm seeing here. And there was a little bit of a signal here on my end that showed me that maybe the screen sharing was not sharing correctly for you. So I'm doing a double check here. And I'm seeing well on my end. Can I have, please, someone send me under the question that you are able to see my slides right now? Because I am not on the feedback that I'm getting from the audience right now, on the visual feedback that I have here. I cannot tell that you're able to see my slides, that my slides showing correctly for you. Can you please confirm that? Yeah, now I see it. Thank you for that. There was a something with the software on the feedback. So very good. You're seeing what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about in this I'm gonna go back to this forces of excellence and innovation momentarily. Thank you for the feedback. On the forces of excellence and innovation, I want to make one additional comment on this. Most organizations try to be either excellent or to be the most innovative. And what we have seen in great enduring organizations is that the great enduring organizations are neither the most excellent or the most innovative. And this can seem very counterintuitive. But here's how it works. The great enduring organizations actually have found a perfect blend between excellence and innovation. The most innovative organizations fade away over time because they fall in love with technology and with the innovation process by itself. The most excellent organizations, they develop great standards and they have great performance for a period of time, but without the right level of innovation and scalability, they become obsolete over time. And you have seen both cases. The very uncommon case is the one that is able to develop a culture where excellence and innovation blend, not merely coexist, but they blend. And the way that they have it is such that excellence is a big part of their culture. They're constantly looking at ways of improving existing systems, but they also have innovation as a blend, and there's always this questioning attitude towards what you have. And there's always asking the question, there's got to be a better way, not just a 1 or 2% better way, but a 5 or 10-fold better way. They're taking different perspectives at the problem. But here's the key. Once they find a different perspective, they don't just continuously innovate on that perspective endlessly. What they do, they are able to scale the innovation they created over a long period of time, consistent with their purpose. And they scale that innovation by doing what? By applying the principles of excellence to the innovation that they created. So that's why it's so confusing. Although excellence and innovation somewhat despise each other, their intelligent blending is absolutely essential for great enduring performance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these ideas are not just concepts that were thought about. I am not a visionary leader who can predict the future. Nobody can do that. But what we do is to observe what works and what doesn't work. And once we see the evidence of what works, we try to understand why it works. And once we understand why it works, we scale that. And that process of thinking is the approach that great enduring organizations take. Now, as I mentioned to you before, I didn't come up with these items on my own. They were based on experiences from amazing organizations that we have collaborated with for nearly 3 decades. Now, there are 5 organizations that I wanted to use to illustrate the points deeper, because there's a difference between collaborating with an organization, advising an organization, and actually being the leader who is accelerating excellence and innovation from within those organizations with corporate responsibilities. As you all know, now you have to play into the politics of the place. You have to play into the culture of each place at a much deeper level. So I will give you a snapshot, but I want to spend a little bit of time in each one of those organizations, because these are not theoretical exercises. These are organizations where I had to lead culture, business, and digital transformation as an officer for the company. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm originally from Brazil. I was educated in the United States with a background in engineering, physics, and investment banking. And I started my career as a designer for Sony. And I was on top of the world. And Sony was one of the top technological leaders when I started my career out of college. And I was like thrilled to be part of that organization. And the lesson from Sony is the following. When I first started at Sony, my boss, his name was Shigo Hayashi, Hayashi's son, spoke very rough English. I spoke very little Japanese, and our communication was rough. And I remember in the first week, he asked me to identify 100 innovations in the research lab and the advanced manufacturing facility where I was supposed to be doing work on. And I was completely overwhelmed by that. There's no way that I, as a new grad, that I could come into a company like that, a technological leader, and come up with 100 innovations. But I will summarize this by telling you that I thought I was inept. I thought I was going to get fired by the end of the week. And I came up with 100 innovations that were probably 10 or so that were decent, and 90 that were really no good by the end of the week. Now, when I presented that to my boss, he looked back at me, reviewed every one of those, and then told me, you know, you think too much like an engineer. You must learn to listen to the process, which didn't mean a whole lot for me back then. But I'm going to tell you what. I was so motivated to do a good job that I asked, okay, what can I do different next week? Hoping that I was going to get some training assignment. And the assignment for next week was identify 200 innovations. Now, I strongly dislike my boss, but that same boss became one of the great mentors of innovation for me to this day. And the lesson that I want to share with you, there are 2 lessons that are very important in our journey. Number 1, in the mind of the expert, there's only one way. It is from the mind of the novice that there are many ways where innovation is going to emerge. But most important, the mind of the novice is terrible at scaling innovation because it doesn't have the experience to do it. And that experience doesn't have to come from that specific domain. It comes from multiple domains, but it typically requires the intelligent blend of the mind of the novice with the mind of the expert to not only create innovation, but also to, to scale innovation. And then most importantly, when it comes to real innovation in your organizations, and a lot of people talk about this term loosely, when it comes to real innovation, you need to identify the real innovators. And the real innovators are not the ones who talk about it. The real innovators are not, doesn't matter what their race, ethnicity, gender, or how many certificates they have hanging on the I love myself wall. Those are not your real innovators. Your real innovators are only revealed by the test of execution of innovation. And so with that, when you have a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms for innovation, that is going to reveal your real innovators. And the traits that you discover on those individuals are traits of purpose alignment, passion, discipline, and resilience. So if I reverse engineering that and you ask me, what do you look for in organizations, José, when you're looking for accelerating innovation, for example, as part of a transformation? I'm looking for the amplifiers of innovation. And the amplifiers of innovation, they have a combination of purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience. Remember that one. Now, as we move along here, I left Sony to join a startup in California that changed the world. You may not know about this company, but Cymer ASML, in the mid-1990s, Moore's Law had come to a standstill in the semiconductor industry. And we developed excimer laser technologies that allow up to this day for circuits to be designed at very, very small scales. Let's put it this way. We're talking nanometers here for those of you who understand wavelengths. And in a matter of 5 years, this company disrupted an entire industry and became very successful as a result of that. But the lesson is what I want to share with you. It is not enough to just have the best, brightest scientists and engineers in your company. It is very important that we develop a common purpose and we develop collaborative leadership skills. Collaborative leadership skills do not happen naturally. Collaborative leadership skills must be understood, learned, and applied. And that organization taught me the importance of collaborative leadership skills. At that point, I had created a system for accelerating innovation in ecosystems. I became the innovation leader for Nestle, a company now with 350,000 employees, 585 business units all over the world. What is the lesson that you get from a place like that, José? The lesson is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Excellence and innovation, or whatever initiative that you have, is just a side dish when it comes to culture. So the jaws of culture will eat it up and will spit it out. So what do? You must align. Our previous speaker talked about the need for kindness, the need for empathy. Meet people and organizations where they're at and bring them along. This sounds like common sense, but common sense is the least common of the senses in large organizations. We are so eager to go for the target that we overlook the necessary steps in the process to get there. Having empathy for culture is critical. Now, I spent the next 15 years of my career in the energy infrastructure industry. So at Black & Veatch, a company with 12,000 engineers, I want to go a little bit deeper with you on that. We had a world-class Lean Six Sigma program in the company. And for many, many years, we were delivering great results by using the discipline of Lean and Six Sigma to identify, prioritize, and implement improvements and innovations. And that was wonderful. We got to year 6 of that, and we're doing incredibly well. But now we're focused on methods and ideas, which is what most people do in the beginning. Now we got to year 6, which is really, really good news, because 50% of all organizations that have a structured improvement innovation program, it fails within the first 3 years. 50% of programs die in 3 years. Most of the people who have transformation leader titles right now, Go look at what they're doing 3 years from now. Half of them will be doing something else. 99% of them will not be doing that anymore after year 5. Such is the death rate. So we need to talk about the importance of stewardship. We need to talk about the importance of ownership. And we need to talk about the fact that the average CEO in the United States has a tenure of 3 years. So no wonder that this great, corporate initiatives die a slow death, and within 3 years, they're mostly noise. And the same companies just keep relaunching these initiatives. You've seen it all. Now we got to year 6, we're being successful. We're part of the 1% club at that point. So why mess with a good thing, right? Well, you're going to mess with a good thing when you have insights onto that you want to experiment with. So if I want to say that I want to be an innovator, I need to have the courage to innovate on even the things that are working quite well for us. And what we did is that we had developed the reputation of the senior leadership team. We look at the leadership team and said, you know what? We want to flip it. We don't want to be focused on just ideas and methods and then trying to identify who the right people are by high performance lists that come from HR or high potential lists that come from the senior leadership team. We want to create a true meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, and we're going to allow anybody in the organization, all 12,000 professionals, to access it. And the senior leadership team thought it was a dangerous idea because things were going so well with just Lean and Six Sigma. Why are we going to change this? And we say, yeah, we love Lean and Six Sigma so much that we're actually going to change the name of the program too. And we're going to change it to Excellence and Innovation, because we don't want to achieve Lean and Six Sigma. We want to achieve excellence and innovation. And we're going to have Lean and Six Sigma as the foundation, a methodology, that one of the many that we're going to do, that we're going to use to achieve that. There was a lot of fear in the organization, but we experimented. And we experimented at scale, first in certain departments, then with hundreds of professionals, then with thousands of professionals. And keep in mind that we did this on a voluntary basis. Nobody was ever forced to do anything. And I think this is a very important point. You cannot force people into greatness. You can only show a vision and a path that inspires them to pursue it. So with that, I can show you the actual results. The year after we implemented that, well, things were actually a little bit better than the previous year, but they were not great. But at least we did not fail miserably. And then we stayed with it, and we are consistent with our purpose, and we kept scaling it. And we scale it further and further. And by year 10, we had exponential growth in value creation. We had exponential growth in voluntary participation in the program. And we had the right people with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience as leaders in this program, as organic leaders of this program. Now, this is one actual example. I asked you to go look at organizations that can do improvements and innovations, not for 1 or 2 years. Anybody can do that. Show me the one that's doing for 10 years, and on year 10, it's growing exponentially. And then go find out what they do, because those are the real gems that we can pursue. Very good. Let me give you a bigger example. My last corporate role before I quote unquote retired and decided to just do this across all industries was with Endeavor Corporation, an energy company that wanted to go for extraordinary. But here's the problem. It was pretty ordinary for many years, because in 2010, this organization had a $2 billion market valuation, which was less than the book value of the company. So the question becomes, how can you be extraordinary if you really have, I'm not even sure, but that it meets that criteria, but it's ordinary performance. So what did we do? Well, we had spent some infrastructure time on certain methodologies ahead of time and building kind of the basics, if you will. But then there wasn't enough, because we're not tapping into people's minds, full minds. I call it the triple H of change and transformation. You have to engage people's heads, but you also have to engage people's hands, and you have to engage people's hearts. Otherwise, you're not going to have an enduring transformation. So remember the triple H: heads, hands, and hearts. Now, we had engaged the heads, and we're an ordinary organization. What did we do? we created exactly what I mentioned to you before. Pay attention to these details. A meritocracy of ideas with clear execution and mechanisms accessible to all. We focus on developing collaborative leadership skills. By 2018, we were delivering over 2,000 implemented innovations on an annual basis. We had EBITDA of more than $1 billion per year from those improvements and innovations. And this organization that really did not have any specific competitive advantage other than its culture of excellence, its culture of innovation, its culture built on collaborative leadership development and innovation execution. This organization now had a market value of $35 billion 8 years later. So you can do the math. You don't get to have these levels of performance by doing an innovation here and there. Your ultimate competitive advantage is to build a culture of excellence and innovation with clear execution mechanisms and entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship at its highest level in your organization. You have to engage everyone on this. You have to unleash the power of your people to go for extraordinary. And if you would zoom in on the picture that I have there, it's myself with thousands of our professionals around the world identifying, prioritizing, and executing on what creates value in the right time and for our customers, for our professionals, and for all stakeholders. Now, with this, I'm gonna do a rapid fire with you here, and the rapid fire that I'm gonna have with you is that, okay, so José, interesting. Wow, these are real powerful examples on how things are done. Break it down some of the components for me. So let's do that. And I'm gonna take all the time here to wrap up today on breaking down these components with you, because I wanna get you a more immersive experience into what's behind this. So look at this statement. 10 years, 40% of the Fortune 500 companies will no longer exist. And we support this statement very much so. Now, there's a caveat on this statement. This is not new. This was stated in 2011. And by 2020, before the pandemic ever came to bear, what we learned is that this prediction was wrong. More than 50% of the Fortune 500 companies no longer existed in a period of 9 years, not 10. And again, before the pandemic came to bear. So the point being that, wow, the people thought that we're exaggerating the point when we predicted that 40% would no longer exist in a decade, and we had more of that go away in less than a decade. The question for you is that, how do you think the next 5 to 10 years are going to play out? Do you think you're going to have less or more change in the decade ahead? You're all very smart. Now, the question becomes, all right, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot. We are living in a world of exponential change when we're dealing with dramatic challenges to our existence, from global warming to exponential technologies and many more areas that are creating these exponential forces. So the best way to predict the future then is what? What do we do? Well, here's what organizations do in times of uncertainty and rapid change. They become tight. They become tight because they're nervous. And believe it or not, the C-levels in the companies that you work for, they have the same level of insecurities that you do. They are not superhumans, and they sit around trying to get some comfort. And the way that they get comfort about predicting the future is by spending money on experts in very expensive forecasting models or advanced scenario planning settings. Why is that? They do that because it makes them feel a little bit better about it, that they are doing the due diligence about the future. But here's the catch. Every one of these approaches is great when the future is linear and a representation of the past. It fails miserably when we live in a non-linear, exponentially changing setting. So with that, there are only two types of people who predict the future: those who don't know and those who don't know that they don't know. And you have to identify, which one am I talking about here? Which one am I dealing with? So there is no best way of predicting the future. There is only one way of predicting the future. And the only way to predict the future is to create it. There are no ifs and buts about it. You have to create it. And how do you create the future then? You create the future by setting the stage for innovation in your organization. You have to create an environment where great people and great ideas can connect. So let's go see what that may look like. Step number one, you must identify and define innovation in ordinary terms. Remember that you have extraordinary innovation, you must define it in ordinary terms, in terms that are accessible to all in the organization. And let's go through that. What is innovation? Well, the word innovation, inno, means new idea. But is it a new idea enough? Nope. I have lots of new ideas. Most of them, they're useless. But now there's a subset of my new ideas that could be interesting, that they could create value perhaps. Oh, okay, I got it, José. So innovation must be ordinarily defined as the new ideas that create value. Well, sounds good, Rick. But when I go into your organization, I see a cemetery of new ideas that create value. So what's going on there? Well, what's going on there is that there is nobody willing to put the reputation behind those ideas. Those ideas were never implemented. So let's talk through this. 90% plus of innovation is not the new idea. 90% of the innovation is not a new idea that creates value. 90% of innovation is the implementation of new ideas that create value. Well, this sounds like common sense. Good. Do it then. Because it doesn't happen that way often. We start talking about technology, we're talking about a project here, a project there, but systematically, are we defining innovation as implementation of new ideas that create value, and everybody in this organization not only can do it, but has an expectation to do it? So to go one level further, we have to remember that innovation is not one size fits all. If you look at the most innovative organizations around the world, what you're going to find them is that they have a portfolio of innovation types, I should say. And they typically distribute it, as I'm showing here, with 70% of their innovations being done at the core of the business, 20% being adjacencies of the business or extensions of that core, and only about 10% of new ideas being disruptive, which is, it's not technology, it's that the idea disrupts the business model, and technology can or may not be useful in doing that. So this is very important for you to have this discussion with your professionals, because they look at the news, and the news cover the 10% of disruptive as if Google, Tesla, and Facebook do 100% of their work on the disruptive space. And that is simply not true. If you do that, you're going to fail miserably. Just having hackathons and disruptive technology, councils here and there, it's not going to do it for you if you don't have a portfolio that understands that 90% of your innovations are not even on that disruptive space. So people want to do disruptive innovation and they don't have the basics of core and adjacent innovation. So remember, it's not the most innovative that become great, enduringly great. Is the one that scales innovation better than others. And the ones that scale innovation better than others, they have a portfolio of core, adjacent, and disruptive innovations, and most important, mechanisms that translate these principles of innovations in each one of these areas to action. Well done. Are we done yet? No. If you're going to go deep into innovation, you need to understand how it matures. And there is no innovation without value creation. If you have an innovation that doesn't have value creation, it's kind of a cool gimmick, but it's not an innovation yet. It needs to be matured. So what does it look like when organizations are highly innovative and mature in their innovation? Well, let's go over that. Typically, at the very basic level, you have entrepreneurs that can create new organizations and entrepreneurs that can build new ideas and entire new businesses within existing organizations. That's wonderful. I love entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs because their individual brilliance combined with passion, discipline, and resilience will create multi-million-dollar opportunities, be it external businesses or internally. But that's not enough for you to become a multi-billion-dollar organization. For you to get to the multi-billion-dollar level, Now you need to scale that individual brilliance through systems. And the way to do that is by creating innovation systems and mechanisms that scale. And the way that you do that is by building on clear governance for excellence and innovation with clear structure, roles, and responsibilities. And then by all means, you can play with growth and technology accelerators, but please play with it in the context of a portfolio, not as an isolated thing. A hackathon here and there is not going to do it for you. Creating a little group that looks at how AI impacts the different parts of the business is not going to do it for you if you want to be enduringly great at the multi-billion-dollar level. So if you get to this point where you have systems and mechanisms for innovation scalability in place, what is the next level? The next level has barely been achieved by any organization in the world. That's the multi-trillion-dollar level of innovation value creation. There are only very few organizations that I can count on my hands that are there today, but there are many that are moving towards that direction. And the key differentiator for those organizations is this incredibly developed, widely spread skill set on collaborative leadership and innovation, execution, and acceleration. They have collaborative leadership specifically as a method for how they do things. And it's not just consensus building. There's a lot to collaborative leadership, okay? You may not even like the people you're working with, but you have a very clear common purpose, and you have the methods and techniques to bring a team towards that common purpose. Innovation, acceleration, execution skill set is related to that as well. It's the actual reality of implementing new ideas that create value. Now, those organizations are built on very clear purpose and a culture that supports that purpose. A strong culture with strong core values that are aligned with that very clear purpose. Remember this, the signature of mediocrity is not an unwillingness to change. The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency with your purpose. And most organizations are chronically inconsistent with their purpose. And that is why they can never get to the scalability that they are pursuing by just using technology. Now, remember that building a culture of collaboration, innovation, and value creation is the ultimate competitive advantage for any organization. So this is the ultimate level. Now, I want to break this down and wrap up. So what matters most? Ideas, methods, technologies, or people? Now, as we know, it's an intelligent blending of all of these components. But people, and the right people, are definitely most important. Now, okay, José, who are these right people and how do I find them? So these right people, they have a combination of purpose alignment between their individual purpose and their professional purpose. They have high levels of passion around what they do. They have incredible levels of discipline. And discipline here is not just following a regimented set of rules. Discipline here is consistency with purpose. And they have resilience and the ability to overcome challenges in the long run by applying collaborative leadership and innovation execution skills that they develop. Purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience is what you're looking for. How do you find these people? You find these people typically in the following pattern. You find that in organizations, and these organizations where people are paid incredibly well, okay? I'm not talking about someone who makes between $0 and $100,000. People who make between $0 and $100,000, you give them more money, you motivate them further. But when you're talking six figures plus, from $100,000 to billions of dollars, these people are not just motivated by giving them a 10% increase in salary. Okay, as a matter of fact, we look at that group, and that group is which I'm representing here. 90% of them are sour-faced. They're going through the motions, and they really don't seem to enjoy what they're doing at any level. And it's sad because they're highly compensated, yet no, it's not happening for them. Why? Because there's no alignment between their personal purpose and their professional purpose, and they became slave now for that compensation. Now, there are some happy faces in between there that you can see, and those happy faces are two possibilities. Either these people are delusional, which happens, or they have found alignment between their individual purpose and their professional purpose. Now, I make no judgments. What we do is that we inspire the self-motivated individuals to pursue something greater. And as they do that, they are excited about doing something greater. but that doesn't mean anything yet. We need to create mechanisms by which they can execute on their ideas. And those mechanisms will deliver strategy execution and value creation. Discipline approaches to identify, prioritize, and execute on what creates value and what accelerates the right strategies. Now, what you find out is that even with all the structure and support, there's only a percentage of these people, of the self-motivated ones, who have the passion, the discipline, and resilience to actually get it done. And this is when you find them on the other side, when they implement these new ideas that create value. Now, you have to make a big deal out of them. You have to showcase them to the rest of the organization. You celebrate these leaders, you celebrate their teams with the rest of the organization, because now you're democratizing excellence and innovation. These are the people who work for us. And by the way, they're not special. They just have had the courage, the purpose, the passion, the discipline, and the resilience to pursue it with the meritocracy of ideas that we have created. Now, with that, if you do this consistently, chronically consistent, over a long period of time, I'm talking 5 to 10 years at least, then what you're going to see is that you're going to have this alignment of purpose in your organization with clear execution mechanisms related to value creation and strategy execution. And when you get to this point, this is a wonderful system. And this is when you have this great enduring performance that is very hard to emulate. So I want to wrap up and summarize for you. The great leaders of excellence and innovation in your organization are not going to come from somewhere else. It's probably you. You are sitting there wondering, hey, you know, what can I do? I'm fighting all these battles and these challenges in this organization. I'm never going to get it done. So listen, some of it is part of the organization that they need to do certain things, but make no mistake, it is you who have to make it happen. If you have a passion about transformation, if you believe that there is a better future that you can guide others on collaboratively, you have to do it. The people around you are not going to do it. Your senior leaders, if they haven't done it yet, they're not going to do it. You have to do it. You have to demonstrate the behaviors, and you have to influence them to do it. Now, great enduring organizations will set up a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, and leaders like you will emerge, because this is all that I've been looking for. If your organization is not doing that for you, you must do it for your organization. Unless you want to retire, or unless you want to be another one of those sour-faced people in the organization who just goes through the motions, complaining for the next decade why the senior leaders have not done such and such. You must have the courage to lead. And as you create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, others will follow you. And your job to teach them different perspectives at problems. Innovation is not an escape from disciplined thinking. It is an escape with disciplined thinking. Today, we know how to build innovation in any setting. We have to learn to take different perspectives at problems. We need to teach our professionals to take different perspectives at problems, and then have mechanisms to execute on that. Now, that's not enough, because they still must have courage. Because even if I manage all the risks around them and I wrap their ankle on a bungee jumping cord, they still have to take the step. They have to take that leap into the abyss, and that takes courage. By all means, manage risk, but you must have courage. Otherwise, you're going to spend the rest of your career complaining about what other people did or didn't do. You must lead, and it takes courage to lead. Manage risks and lead. And ultimately, we are responsible for creating an environment in our organizations. And when I talk organization, you may be thinking, oh, he's talking about these multi-billion-dollar companies that he works with. No, this can be enterprise-wide, but you can apply these principles in your own department of 5 people. It's your job as a leader to create an environment where great ideas and great people can connect, because that's the ultimate accelerator for innovation. So with that, I'm going to wrap up our session today, and I'm going to tell you how you predict the future. Number 1, you can't. Number 2, you must create it. And to create the future that you want to have, as opposed to living into someone else's future, you have to build a culture of excellence and innovation. And if you do that, is your ultimate competitive advantage. incredibly hard to do. It requires you to be chronically consistent, not for the next few months, for the next few years. It requires leadership. It requires stewardship. And you are it. You are the one who is responsible for the success of the organization going forward. Or you are going to have to choose of just being another one in the crowd that looks at it and say, I wish things were different. You must develop the courage and you must take the steps towards building this culture locally and then influence others and influence your organization. If it is not coming from the top, if it is coming from the top, wonderful. Associate, align yourself with the senior leaders and make that happen. But what I'm saying is that very few major transformations are actually well led from the top. If you're lucky enough to be in one of those, take advantage of it. If you're not, build it from wherever you are. Now, you can connect with me. I think it's easy for you at this point to know how to find me. You can follow us on LinkedIn. Between now and the day that I die, I'm gonna be doing this, so it'll be easy to find out what I'm up to and how we can engage and build a community outside of your organization to keep accelerating excellence and innovation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very appreciative of the time that you all spent with us today. We're gonna be wrapping up right now this session, and we're gonna set up our next session. And our next session is tomorrow. Our next session is tomorrow. We include some amazing speakers. They're going to continue to build on this theme of excellence, of innovation, of digital transformation, business transformation, and cultural transformation. So I'm going to give you a quick glimpse of what's happening tomorrow, so that you know what to expect. We're going to start the day tomorrow with JLL and the Executive Director and Digital Chief Information Officer for JLL. He's going to talk. His name is Edward Wagner, and Ed's going to talk about changes in physical space and opportunities to leverage emerging technologies for flexibility, experience, and sustainability. We're going to follow that up with a fantastic presentation from Marco Timura from Morningstar Financials. I've worked with Marco in a number of different settings, and Marco and his team at Morningstar are doing some really amazing things in the financial sector. And we're going to talk specifically tomorrow about RPAs and how they're using RPAs to really streamline a lot of great operations at Morningstar. So Marco is going to come up next after the first presentation, and then we're going to go a little bit into the government sector, and we're going to have Ernest Schrappa, who is the director of the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, talk to us about going digital in the government space. So and how they're looking to enhance customer experiences by applying digital transformations to government. So that should be very, very interesting. Really looking forward to that. And we're going to wrap up tomorrow with a fantastic presentation with Aditya Sinha, who is the global head of consumer source data acquisition at Nielsen. And she's going to talk about leading agile transformation in an environment that's continuously changing. So Aditi is a terrific leader of transformation and works for an organization and company that's very influential on transformations that happen within themselves, but also with their clients. So, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasure as usual to be with you. Go into the LinkedIn, make comments, questions. We'll go back there and answer as many as we can. If you're getting value from the sessions, please let us know through LinkedIn, because that's a great way of supporting our sponsors and letting them know that you are getting value from these sessions. So we get a lot of value from interacting with you, and we look forward again to have a great final day of Digital Transformation Workplace Live tomorrow. So for now, whatever you are in the world, have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you back tomorrow.